Hello, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi. We're going to begin our lecture today on Chapter 3, Business Process Management, with the title Process Identification and Enterprise Architecture. Inside here, we're also going to learn a term for business strategy. Okay, we begin. This is basically our content. We're going to follow the textbooks that we use from Dumas, Fundamentals of Business Process Management. I hope you have to read the chapter 2. Inside the textbook, it is on chapter 2. But for us, it's chapter 3 because we have learned about Porter's business strategic model last week, 5 forces model and value chain model on chapter 2. Okay. So I think we've seen this life cycle, business process life cycle on chapter 1. So this is a very important life cycle throughout the syllabus because we're going to use this, we're going to follow this, we're going to understand this basically. Okay, so in this life cycle, we have few phases. Started off with process identification, then process discovery, process analysis, process redesign, process implementation, process monitoring. And it is a cycle process. It's a cycle process until our product or our system is matured or used or effective. Okay, so we're going to go with the first process. In between of process identification and process discovery, we do have what we call process architecture. So this is what we're going to learn today on what is process architecture. Okay, in the bridge of between process identification phase dengan process discovery. Alright, we begin. Okay, there is the location for process architecture. Alright, so throughout the chapter, we're going to learn about what is process identification, our very first phase, which refers to as systematically defining business process. Business process ni kita tak boleh nak buat secara scratch. We have to build it systematically. Apa maksud systematically? Kenalah ada dia punya tertib. Tertib dalam disiplin dia. Systematically define business process of organization and establishing criteria to select processes for improvement. Okay. Output, basically the process architecture is the output. Output is process architecture, which represent processes and its interrelations. Apa proses dia dan hubung kaitnya. Process architecture is the output tadi tu, serves as framework. This is what we call the framework. Process architecture is basically a framework for defining priorities and scope of project. Sama juga kalau kita nak buat rumah, kena ada dia punya plan, kena ada dia punya design dia kan. Kena tahu daripada material apa. So basically we have that. We must identify that. First, we discuss the context of process identification. We present the method based on process architecture. Definition and process selection. Definition is concerned with listing initial sets of processes and their architecture. And selection consider criteria for defining priorities of processes using portfolio. So benda ni kita kena ingatlah. So we're gonna these are the terms that we have to somehow know and apply later on. Definition, what is the term of definition in process identification? And selection also is a term that we use in this process identification. Tapi output dia dalam bentuk portfolio. Alright, we go to the first. Dalam content ni, layout dia tak ada banyak lah, ada 3 perkara saja. The first content is the context of process identification. Alright, let's see. Okay, in process identification, it's important for us to define our business strategy. So what is business strategy? Business strategy is an organizational perspective on setting and meeting business goals. Business strategy kena mengikut dia punya goal. So kita kena tetapkan goal dia dulu. Okay, then how we going to achieve the goal? Then kita pasang business strategy. So business strategy is an holistic perspective on the setting, how we gonna achieve our goal. So that is business strategy. So kena ingat sikit lah definition ni. Alright. So strateginya dalam organisation, dia ada banyak strategi yang kita boleh pakai. Tapi dalam textbook ni dia bagi dua sajalah. Satu ialah balance scorecard. Dan satu lagi ada portfolio. Seperti kita tengok. So what is balance scorecard? Balance scorecard is a strategy developed by Kaplan and Norton. Kaplan and Norton ni researcher yang come up with the strategy, the method. In this balance scorecard, it provides 4 perspective. Financial perspective, dia kata tadi holistic perspective kan, business strategy ni kita kena melihat secara menyeluruh. So it provide financial perspective, customer perspective, internal perspective, learning and growth perspective. That is dia dah define dia, strategy dia. Then inside this financial perspective, what do we have? We have improved cost structure. We have long-term shareholder value. We have enhanced customer value. So in between tu kita ada increase asset utilization and expand revenue opportunity. That is contributed dalam financial perspective. In customer perspective pula, we have product or service attribute, its relationship, and images. Images is very subjective kan? Ia berkaitan dengan corporate image, brand image, organizational image. So that is very related with the business value or customer value. So kita dah cakap pasal value kan masa chapter tu. So customer perspective ni dalam product attribute ni kita ada price, quality, availability, selection, functionality. For relationship we have service and partnership. And then we have image, the brand image. On the internal perspective, ingat value chain tadi kita ada primary activity and secondary activity. So internal perspective, basically we're going to look at the operation management process, customer management process, innovation process, regulation and social process. Okay, so on the operation management process, we have supply, production and distribution risk management. Itu antara selection yang dia ada. And then it continues. For learning and growth perspective, kita ada dari segi culture, leadership, alignment, teamwork. So that is the criteria that we must look at. This is defined by Kaplan and Norton. Okay, tapi saya takkanlah go detail on this. It is for your knowledge. Then you know what are the strategy at least. The second strategy is what we call as enterprise architecture. Yang ini paling close with our nature. Dalam pembangunan sistem in business computing, it is somehow close. So the enterprise architecture is defined ataupun dibangunkan oleh what we call the open group of architecture framework. The open group architecture framework. Okay, dalam ni, it provides another types of perspective. This business strategy gives us perspective, insight. Why? Because when we have perspective, we know what to see. We know where to see. We know how to see it. It provides us guidance on seeing things, on operation, managerial, strategic management, support system. So it gives us insights. Alright, dalam enterprise architecture ni, we have another 6 perspective. So you have to somehow able to differentiate between this business strategy antara balance scorecard tadi tu dengan enterprise architecture. Okay. Alright, on the perspective number 1, we have organizational perspective. Yang kat sini for enterprise architecture, very close nature to us. We must able to define what is actors, whose is actors, what are the roles that they have, and organizational structure. On product perspective or service perspective, we have the products or the services and what are their relationships. We have to define that. And business process perspective, kita ada process architecture. This is the outcome, the document that we're going to have. And then we have another one, data perspective. This is informational entities and its relationship. Then we have application perspective, where different pieces of software are used and with their dependency. Takat kebergantungan kita pada sistem tersebut. Is it operational? Is it core? Core is operational, or is it support? And so on and so forth. Okay, then we have technical infrastructure. So do we have the skills? Do we have the resource? Do we have the tools and devices? Do we have the setup? Do we have the technicality? So this is bahagian technical infrastructure. So we have basically these two kind of business strategy that provide us perspective, holistic perspective of an organisation. Nak melihat dari segi proses apa yang ada dan berkait. Alright. Okay, hari tu saya dah minta kamu buat tutorial kan? You do your tutorial using what we call it, procurement and pay for build IT kan? So right now, build IT is going to build IT is a construction company. So it helps to build a university. Kalau kat sini dia kata construction site of WU Vienna's new campus in 2013. Okay. Kalau nak proses, kalau construction company banyak proses yang berkaitan kan? Banyak proses yang berkaitan, dan bagaimana kita nak guna IT ataupun ICT atau information system or computing to help them with the management, management processes management untuk business dia. Okay. So consider the construction company IT. Kalau dalam textbook dia dalam chapter 2 ya. So that's why exercise 2.1 and 2.2 tu saya tak ubah ya. So consider the construction company build IT and its procure to pay process. So you dah baca kan case study procure to pay process dalam example 1.1. Okay, in page 2 chapter 1. Okay, so to which category in the internal perspective of figure 2.1 does this belong to? 2.1 tadi tu figure tadi tu lah ya. How? Lepas pula je. Alright, continue. How does it influence different aspect of customer perspective? How it shaped by aspect of learning and growth perspective. So you can use Kaplan and the open group TOGAF tadi dia, the open group architecture framework punya strategi. Okay. Yang ni cakap pasal changes of strategic relevant management, saya akan skip lah ya. Memang ada changes, but that is lah ya. So we're going to look at the process checklist. Process checklist is important, especially pada peringkat process identification, for us to identify what is required. Apa yang perlu, apa yang kena ada, apa yang penting, the priority and urgency dia, apa dia, which process that we have to give prioritization. So the process checklist here dibuat pada peringkat paling awal, then usually customer will know what the things that they want. Alright, it may not be easy to decide on what to consider as a business process. That's why you have to do a lot of information checking, interviewing, discussion, workshop, document observation. Banyak perkara yang kita kena update. Alright, first there are several strategic questions that we have to ask. So this provides some guidance on how we're gonna ask the customers on what the things that they want. It also provide perspective for us, the developer. Okay, so The questions that you have to ask is, it is a process at all? Yeah. So it must be possible to identify main action which is applied to a category of cases. So you have to give it a name dalam bentuk form, verb and noun. Verb noun. Okay. Can the process be controlled? Yeah. You have to identify the repetitive series of events and activities to execute individually observable cases. Okay. Without a clear case notion, process management is not feasible. Also, without a sense of repetition, a group of business activity may better qualify as a project than business process. Here, you know that there's a difference between a project and a business process. What is the difference? And then you have to know what is a process and what is an event. Okay? So selalunya business process, we understand dia mesti ada rantaian action dia. Ada jujukan action dia. Or sequence of action dia. So what types of actions that you have to understand? Is it apa dia? What are the actions that you have to define? Then you have to define. Alright? In the process, is the process important enough to manage? It's also a question. There is a customer who willing to pay for outcome? Ada tak customer yang boleh bayar for the outcome? Organisation that carry out the process will be willing to pay, because apa-apa hal pun project development is about money kan, sebab income, revenue. Okay. Legal issues, the mandatory framework compel an organisation to execute it. Is the code process too big? So you have to identify relation between initial event and activities. Okay. Here's another terms that you have to understand. What is event? What is activities? So you have to understand those terms as well. Is the scope of the process not small? Rule of thumb, there should be at least 3 different actors. Then baru kita boleh cakap it is the most smallest set of scope. If there are no handoff between multiple actors or system, there is little that can be improved using BPM method. Itu dia punya rule of thumb. Alright, let's continue. Kita go to the second content. We go to the second content, which is definitions of the process architecture. Alright. So this is a process category. We have to categorize the process first. Kalau kita terlalu banyak proses kan, first you have to categorize it. Kalau macam mainan banyak kan, macam mana nak kemas mainan yang berselerak dalam satu bilik? First we have to categorize it. Kalau pun nak main puzzle yang cantum-cantum puzzle tu banyak, katakanlah 1,500 puzzle pieces, you have to put it according to its categorization based on colors first. Then you can start doing it. Why? Because that's the strategy. Kalau kamu main 1,500 puzzle pieces and then you tak susun accordingly, dia akan jadi lagi lama nak siap. So better you susun dulu, categorize by according to the colors, then baru you start doing the puzzle. So sama juga dalam bidang kita ni. So basically the categories we have 3 types of categories for cabang dia: management processes, core processes and support processes. So these are the categories. Dalam dia tu kita ada for management processes, we have what are the vision, develop the strategy, how to implement the strategy, and how to manage risk. How to manage risk ni is things that we have to cater. Non constraint. Risiko adalah constraint yang kita kena control dan tahu, control dan jaga, how to manage it. Sebab kalau tak manage risk, dia could be contributed to waste, contributed to error. Kalau boleh kita tak nak. That is the management process. Dalam core processes, yang ini yang kita chapter 2 belajar kan pasal value chain. So we have to know what's the core processes, what the support processes. Core processes tu for primary activity, support processes tu secondary activity. Core processes, kita inbound logistic, ni semua sama ni. Sama. Inbound logistic, production, outbound logistic, delivery, and customer service. Ini sama macam last week. Untuk primary activity value chain model dalam portal by portal. Alright. And then what is support processes? We have manage personnel, HR, bahagian HR, bahagian IT and infrastructure, and bahagian procurement and asset management. Okay. So this is how we categorize the process. Okay. Next. Ini exercise ni contoh campus build IT yang buat. Okay. So, what are core support and management process of a university? So, boleh tak dalam gambaran kamu, bagaimana kamu nak categorizekan the core support and management process of a university? Ataupun any organisation, how you going to identify core support and management process for a school, for a local council, for a e-commerce business, for retailer business, or any business. Okay. Now, not only by categorizing is important, knowing what are the relationship involved is also important. Why? Because kalau macam business strategies give us insight, categorizing process gives us a very good strategic kind of way of doing it, more effective kalau kita categorizekan siap. But knowing the relationship between process is also crucial sebab it will provide values and meaning on why we doing it. Faham tak? So benda tu ini yang kita katakan sebagai systematic. Faham ya? Alright, so relationship between processes could be in 3 types of relationship. It could be sequential, secara sequence. It could be based on decomposition, or it could be dalam bentuk specialization. Alright. Okay, so the sequence dia dalam berjujukan lah. Decomposition kita pecahkan ikut dia punya composition. Kita ada higher rank, ada lower rank. And the lower rank have some parts of the higher rank. That is decomposition. Dia ada values ataupun attribute yang dikongsi dengan higher composition. Yang lower composition ni pun ada dia punya shared value, attributes or shared attributes. Specialization, where you want to go specific. For example, handle job application cara Austria mungkin berbeza dengan cara Germany. So you have to, ini kalau melibatkan across boundaries lah, ataupun different way of doing it by demographic, for example. Okay, so we continue. Okay, can you think of other types of relations that is useful to distinguish between processes? Dia bagi hint guys tu. Think about the process of identifying the relations between business processes. Okay, can you do it? Alright, let's see. Now, kita dah masuk bahagian process architecture. Now, process architecture ni level dia penting Basically, we have generic process architecture. Generic process architecture ni paling basic. Dia ada 3 level. Level 1, process landscape that include value chains. Level 2, business processes. Yang ini kita akan guna modeling nanti. Business process management notation. Kita akan belajar pada chapter 4 nanti. Level 3 and above kita ada sub-processes and task. So level 2 and 3 kita akan guna business process management notation and for notation. Alright. Okay, so ini adalah contoh dari British Telecom berkenaan dengan level-level using generic process architecture. Okay, so dia classifykan paling bawah ni, ya, paling bawah ni peringkat operational, levels, ya. Bawah nombor 1 dan 2 ni level E dengan level F ni consider operational level, yang mana F is a detailed process flow, ya, yang mana dia mengandungi a further decompositions of detailed operational and requirements. Okay, so operational levels ni lebih kepada physical level. Level E, operational process flow, dia berkaitan dengan detail operational process flows with error, conditions and product, and geographical variance where it is required. Okay, so that is operational level. Level C and D, kita dah masuk process level. Process level ni is a bridge between physical level and logical level. Sebab level D tu physical level, dia adalah business process flow, yang melibatkan decompositions of core processes into detailed success model. Business process flow. Level C, however, dia dah masuk logical level. It's a core process for level C. Core processes that combine together to deliver service stream and other end-to-end processes. Even higher, level B, process groupings, and then level A, business activities, dia dah masuk business level. Atas sekali is a meta levels. Atas sekali dah masuk meta level. Levels ni sebenarnya kamu dah, bukanlah perkara yang baru bagi kamu sepatutnya, sebab masa kamu belajar buat modeling masa part tu, saya rasa sepatutnya dah dengar what is physical level, what is logical level, what is meta level. Tapi tak apa, kalau ada soalan berkaitan ni kita boleh discuss later, alright? Alright, ini adalah contoh process classification framework yang dikeluarkan oleh APQC. APQC is American Productivity and Quality Consultants. So dia dah tengok kat sini, dia dah classifykan. Classification and categorization is another method. First tadi kita tengok on categorization. Now we are looking at classification. Apa beza categorizing and classifying? Dia ada beza dia kan? Nanti saya boleh tanya nanti dalam tutorial. Okay. So basically classification, dia ada level dia lah. Point 1 ni develop vision and strategy. Point 2 develop and manage product services. Basically dia dah bagi tahu bagaimana nak susun. Bagaimana nak susun dan apa item yang perlu ada dalam setiap susunan tersebut. So that dah been defined before. So that's why biasanya kita pakai je. Sebab dia dah well defined. Salah satu yang dikeluarkan oleh yang paling lama dan paling famous is APQC Classification Framework. Okay. Yang ini adalah proses landscape model untuk Vienna Public Transport. Yang ini adalah tadi architecture tadi kan, proses architecture, mana dia dah classifykan according to the management process, ada apa, core processes ada apa, support processes ada apa. So basically sebenarnya saya nak kamu come up with this at the first level. Ni masih first level lah ni. Kalau untuk Vienna Public Transport, contoh yang ada kat sini, management process dia kata manage enterprise, communicate in and out, manage processes, manage quality. Core process dia terbahagikan kepada 4. Ada customer relationship, manage customer relationship, operate vehicles, transport customer, provide infrastructure. Dalam manage customer relationship, we have contact customer and manage sales. Dan kita ada operate vehicles, kita ada plan and buy vehicle and maintain vehicle. Transport customer, kita ada plan transport customer ataupun schedule dia. Provide infrastructure, kita ada plan for infrastructure, build infrastructure, maintain infrastructure. And then we have this bridge of all core processes, iaitu transport customer, dan kita ada foster relationship, check vehicle, evaluate transport and evaluate infrastructure. Support processes, we have manage personnel, siapa drivers, manage financial, manage information, and so on and so forth. So this is our process landscape model. Supposing kalau kamu buat investigation akan satu-satu company, maka kamu kena somehow boleh to map dia punya service tu dan organisation tu dalam bentuk process landscape model. Okay. Alright, how to define landscape model? So, kita kena classify dia punya terminology, identify end-to-end process. For each end-to-end process, identify its sequences process. For each business process, identify major management and support processes. So, this dia dah define on how to do it. Dia baca dah, nanti saya skip. Dia ada lagi sampai 7 ni. Decompose and specialize business processes, compile process profile, check competency and consistency. Completeness and consistency. Okay. Yang ini construction, dia masih menggunakan build IT ni. Yang ni ada dalam textbook. Which APQC categories on level 1 are relevant for construction company like build IT? Sekarang ni dia nak kamu come up with the contoh yang nak bagi ialah construction company. Bagaimana kamu nak come up with the level 1 punya architecture? Process landscape model tadi itulah. So, mana-mana company yang kamu pilih untuk lihat untuk projek nanti, maka kamu kena identify dia punya process landscape model. Okay. Alright, yang ni ada contoh ni lah. You boleh tengok refer contoh construction build IT ni. Okay. Dan bagaimana dia come up with the process process profile. Yang ini adalah dia punya landscape model. Dan sekarang kita ada case university pula. Macam mana nak create landscape process model for university applying the 7 step described in this section. Use the APQC process classification as an aid. Manageability and impact. Explain how the trade-off between impact and manageability works for broad and narrow processes respectively. Yang ni kalau tak faham nanti kita boleh discuss later masa tutorial ya. Ini adalah example of SAP process map. SAP ni another organisation Apa ini contoh lah, saya skip sajalah yang ni Okay, the last part of today's lecture is basically process selection, right? So, what is selection criteria? Tadi kita ada categorizing, classification, and now selection. Alright, so we go to the first we have to list out all the criteria, and then bila dah dapat all the criteria, now we have to look at, can we execute everything? The scope, we have to look at the scope lah. Can we execute everything? Or we want to focus certain things? Is there any urgency or importance? So now we have to look at the selection criteria, give that some sort of perspective and insight. So first, selection criteria, you mesti tengok dari segi strategic importance dia, health and feasibility. Health ni macam dari segi fit dia lah. Dia fit ke tidak? We look at the strategic importance first. Untuk selection criteria, strategic importance, kita akan tengok mana kriteria yang mempunyai greatest impact on the strategic goal. Consider profitability, uniqueness or contribution to competitive advantage. Select those processes for process management that relate to strategy. For health, to find it fit or not, determine which processes are in deepest trouble. Mana paling kita kena buat dulu? Which one is the most giving problem? Most problematic process dalam organisation. These processes may profit the most from BPM initiative. Then baru kita boleh apply BPM dekat situ. Feasibility, determine how susceptible process is to BPM initiative, incidentally or continuously. Culture and politik may be an obstacle. Ini feasibility dia lah. Ada halangan-halangan dia tak? Ada constraint dia tak? Okay. BPM should focus on these processes where it's reasonable to achieve benefit. Okay. So these are the selection criteria. Okay. Example. Exercise untuk selection criteria. Ini give you some sort of mental punya exercise dululah. Belum lagi actual exercise. So exercise untuk selection criteria ni, consider again the procure to pay process of BOIT and the admission process of university. Ditambahin satu admission process. Kamu semua pernah, you already have a experience dalam admission process in a university kan? Discuss their strategy important, their health and feasibility of potential improvement of these processes. Bagaimana kau tak ada procure to pay? Problem tak? Ada impact tak? For the question, given all of the discussed criteria, does an assessment of the important health and feasibility always point us to the same processes of activity managed? Should all processes that are unhealthy and strategy important and feasible to be subjected to BPM? Perlu ke? Kalau kita dah identify dia unhealthy, dia very important and dia very feasible, perlu ke kita apply BPM? It is also another big question. So the next after selection criteria, we have process, performance, measure. So performance measure kita ada 4 measures: time, cost, quality and flexibility. So the objective ialah formulate performance objectives of the process at high level in a form of a desirable state. Contohnya dia mesti kena ada definite target, like customer should be served in less than 30 minutes. That is time. And then find relevant performance dimension and aggregation functions, yang mana the percentage of customers served in less than 30 minutes, let us call this measure ST30. Standard time 30. Define the more refined objective based on this performance measure, such as ST30 mesti lebih daripada 99%. So this is target. This is objective. This is what we call strategy, goal. Ini contoh dalam restoran. Boleh baca. Baca take time to baca this because it gives you very good insight. Kalau nak buat sistem besok pun kan, first things first, you have to look at the business process. Yang ini adalah untuk travel agency. Untuk travel agency, nanti saya bagi dia punya slide juga sambung untuk travel agency. Yang ini adalah contoh balance scorecard. Balance scorecard ni contohnya kita tak akan hasilkan balance scorecard, not to worry, because balance scorecard is very huge, not your level yet. Ni contoh balance scorecard. Yang ini contoh proses portfolio. Balance scorecard adalah outcome, output dia. Proses portfolio pun dia punya outcome. Dan so proses portfolio ni dia akan categorize according to dia punya grid. Importance, health, high and low, poor and good. Okay, then feasibility ni selection dia lah. So you boleh identify lah ni importance, health, feasibility, and place these processes according to dia punya grid. Then you baru boleh buat implementation. Kalau tak, nanti you tak boleh nak select mana satu yang lebih important. You don't have insight. So this portfolio processes give a good insight for you to implement. You select untuk implement apa lepas ni. Faham Okay, ini exercise nanti kita buatlah ataupun tengok kemudian. Ini contoh dia. I hope you boleh tengoklah dari segi macam mana dia guna ni Ni contoh dia. So basically we are at the end of the chapter. In this chapter we discuss process identification. Kita tengok process architecture that defines relationship between process, the 7-step methods for process landscape model. Kita tengok process selection, kita tengok priorities dari segi process health, feasibility and time, importance, health and feasibility. Assess dari segi performance measure of time, cost, dia ada 4 tadi, and then kita mau time, cost, quality and flexibility. Process portfolio helps in selection for process improvement, and selected process becomes subject to remaining phases of BPM life cycle. Alright, so basically that's the end of our chapter 3 on process identification, business enterprise architecture and business strategy. Thank you.